So you might notice that I look a little different today. Or maybe you've never watched me before and you think this is what I look like all the time. So today I have put together a throwback look, a 90s look. If you saw, I was on Sophia Sees Beauty Live the other night with Michelle Wong, and we were talking about a couple of products. And I was thinking back to all the products that I've used over the years that you wonder what you were thinking when you look back on the pictures. And will I do the same in 10 years and look back at the products that I'm using now and be like, what was I thinking? I don't think so, but we always say that. So one of the things that came up was this product by Charlotte Tilbury, because it's coming out again. It's the Big Lip Plumpgasm. Yes, that is the name. And if you watch the live, hilarity ensues when it comes to the name of this. But I do have one, and this is the Pillow Talk one, as we thought it was. And I tried it out again today just to see if my thoughts about it were correct. And yes, this thing stings like no other stinging, plumping thing ever. So I hate this I hate this product, and I still hate this product because, to be honest, and I used it when I first put the look on, it does plump my lips, but not as well as, say, the new Saint Laurent does. And the new Saint Laurent stings, but not as bad as this product. So when this product gets re-released, which I think might be like right now, if it's the same formula, it's gonna sting badly, and it's really not gonna plump your lips as much as the Saint Laurent. If you really want something that plumps your lips up, I would suggest the Saint Laurent one. I can handle it. Like it stings, but I can handle it. But the smell is actually the bigger problem with the Saint Laurent. The smell is weird, but it does work. I also know that there's other products out there that absolutely do plump your lips, but I've heard about people having, bad allergic reactions and literally having to go to the hospital. So just be careful what you decide to use. But let's talk about the 90s for a second, and why, other than the fact that it was funny in that live, I also feel like some of these products are coming back into fashion. And this look that I have on right now, I don't think will come back as a whole, or maybe it will, who knows? But I think elements of it will. So I want to talk about the products that I use today, the products that you can buy currently, and like elements of this look that I actually think are good. The first thing is I used the La Prairie. This is the very, very expensive, like $200 foundation. And this foundation is a heavier foundation. It is a full coverage foundation on me. I used it with a brush and I thinned it out so it wouldn't be as much of a full coverage, but it's definitely full coverage in my opinion. And I think you can get it to medium coverage. Back in the 90s, everyone had full coverage makeup. A lot of full coverage makeup. And I actually wrote down some products. So MAC Studio Fix Powder Plus Foundation. There was the Clinique Stay Matte Oil-Free Makeup and the Maybelline Dream Matte Mousse, which was late 90s. If you're familiar with any of these, if you're old enough to know what any of these are, you remember that the look was very matte. There wasn't a dewy look anywhere. Everybody's face was matte. Everybody's face was chalky white. And you saw a lot of stars actually, like when they'd get flashback from, taking pictures that they had like white under their eyes. That's a particular powder, by the way. It's the By Terry powder for many of those people. But anyway, and it's because that's what everybody had on their face. Everyone had this very matte look, which I have today. Now I achieved that by using the La Prairie and using the Clé de Peau powder. Clé de Peau powder is one of the best powders out there. I love this powder. This was the limited edition packaging. It is the Clé de Peau translucent loose powder in light, number 1. It is perfecting. It does not accentuate texture, and it's one of the few mattifying powders out there that I actually can use and think, wow, that looks perfect. So my skin would, honestly, like if this was 1994, when I graduated college, this would have been perfect. I would have been thrilled with this foundation look. So if you are looking for a matte look and you're looking for, you have oilier skin or you just like the matte look, which many people do nowadays, it's becoming popular again. It's another reason I brought this back. There's a lot of new matte foundations out there, velvet foundations, that will achieve this type of look. Chanel has a great velvet foundation. There's others that I've seen on the market. I don't use velvet foundations because I don't like that look anymore. I want a very dewy foundation. But powders, I really would strongly recommend you look at the Clé de Peau loose powder. If you want a pressed powder, Clé de Peau also has a great one. And supposedly there's going to be a Clé de Peau foundation, powder foundation, and maybe other luxury brands will have their powder foundations back this year because they're making a comeback. So those are things that you might want to incorporate into your look. The lipstick. The lipstick in the 90s was brown or brick. That was it. There was practically nothing else. So the popular products were MAC, Twig, Whirl, and Paramount, and then the Spice lip liner. That was really big. Revlon had a shade called Toast of New York, which I had. I don't have it anymore. I'm sure it went bad. But it was great. And Chanel actually had a shade. Let me see if I wrote it down. I thought I did. Yes. Chanel Rouge Cocoa in deep browns or russets. And there were a bunch of them. And there were a lot of ads by Chanel that you saw this deep brown, russet brown look. And I had one, and for life I can't remember the name of it right now, but it was a great, great shade. And yeah, it was this deep, deep brown with a little bit of red in it, and it was absolutely phenomenal. You can still buy Spice liner and Whirl liner. I have them both here. These are originals, and you can tell because this is a very tiny Spice liner. This is the last of the original Spice liners that I own. It's old, it's drying out. I have a couple of newer Spice liners, and then there's the Mob Beauty. This is, I think it's called 1996, or it's 1990, 1990. You can buy the Mob Beauty, which is 1990. Which is a very similar shade to Spice. I have Whirl by MAC, and that's another, very 90s shade, of course. Great, all great choices. I used to have the shade Chestnut by MAC. Chestnut is a very deep brown, like brown, and that I would use on the outside of my lips, and then I would use Twig, which I have here, and Twig has changed over the years. When I originally had Twig, it was a different shade, but I had Twig. And then Per lip gloss would be the other one. The matter, the browner, pinker, the better. That's just the way it was. And so today I used the shade by Merit, which is 1990. And this is like the perfect lipstick to signify the 90s look. You wore this type of lipstick, whether it looked good on you or not, didn't matter. You still, this is the look you had. Now, the brows. The brows were thin and arched. I was not about to shave off my eyebrows for you guys. And I wasn't about to even try to trim them because I was like, you know what? I went through enough of that in the 90s because I did over tweeze, but I did draw them as thin as I possibly could. I usually fluff them out more. They were the word is over plucked actually, and pencil thin. And in fact, a lot of people would just pencil in their brows. Maybelline brow pencil was huge. Revlon brow, Tweezerman tweezers. Everyone had a pair of Tweezerman tweezers to tweeze every single hair off their eyebrows, so that you had this very thin line, and it would either be like a triangle, or it would be like a round, like rainbow type of thing. Neither one looked good, guys. I'm not arguing that it did, because it didn't, but it was a style. It was a thing. I don't know what else to say. Like, that these things happen. Mistakes were made. So then you get into the eyeshadows. All of the eyeshadows were cool toned, which is interesting because I hear a lot of people nowadays saying stuff like the new Chanel collection, I want a cool toned shadow. And it could be because some throwbacks to the 90s, either one, that they're becoming more popular and people are like, ooh, I want that look, or two, we're all of a certain age and things have been stressful lately and we're brought back to a time in our lives that may have been simpler. So the look was frosty silvers, icy blues, and grays, and it was just like a wash of color across your eye. You didn't contour, you didn't have like 3 different shades. There was no cut crease that did not exist in the 90s. It was like this. this is what you had. It was like a shimmery baby blue, gray, silver, something. That was like, and it was a wash of color. The only other thing that you might have seen was just like gray or something that was almost the color of your eyelids. And that was it. Just all it was. And then you'd have very smudged, very smoky eyeliner, which I have on. I have black. And I never do this anymore. I never line my eyes like this. This is a very 90s look though. A lot of smudged eyes were in. And it was a smoky kind of lived in look. Gwen Stefani had it, Courtney Love. And it was always kohl eyeliners, always. Wet n Wild was very big. MAC eye kohl in Smolder. And then Maybelline Great Lash Mascara, that pink and green tube to get your lashes like very spiky, especially on the ends. And very like chunky. There was always like pieces of mascara falling on your face. And the cool toned eyeshadows were like CoverGirl. CoverGirl was huge. CoverGirl enhancers. There was a shade called Ice Princess, I think it was a trio that was super popular. Revlon had quads that were all icy blues and grays, and Urban Decay with their original grunge era shades. Urban Decay had like the best grunge era shades ever. You can fight me on that one. And then blush, there wasn't really blush. There was a very subtle, like dusty pink or rose blush, which we are seeing again. And you can find so many different like pink blushes now that honestly, there's so many I can't even like describe it to you. But Chanel had one that was great. It was called Mocha. That one was really popular. Clinique blush in Mocha pink. Again, Mocha seems to, and then Bonnie Bell was very big and had a lot of different shades. CoverGirl had something called Cheekers, which was like really popular. You'll notice though, like back in the 90s, makeup, there was luxury makeup. Yes, absolutely. Chanel, for one, I worked for them late 90s. But it wasn't like the 16-year-olds and 18-year-olds were buying high-end makeup. They were buying CoverGirl, Maybelline, Clinique. It wasn't, Sephora didn't exist. So you didn't have these, and influencers didn't exist. Content creators didn't exist. So people were going to CVS or Walgreens or whatever they're, grocery stores. They weren't buying, and if you did buy high-end makeup, you went into a Nordstrom or a Neiman's or something. That wasn't really the market for, teenagers and 20-year-olds. That was for their parents, not for them. So it was a very different scene in the 90s and how you bought makeup. It's changed dramatically in the last 20 years. I mean, you wouldn't even, if you took me from 1994 and transferred her to now, I wouldn't even believe the difference in the makeup. Not only the formulas and the colors and the designs, but how people buy. A lip liner dominant look was big in the 90s. As I was talking about earlier when I was talking about like lipstick colors, there were a lot of looks where you had that dark lip line and that very light lip. Usually it was like a dark brown and a light pink, like Purr, for example. J.Lo rocked this look, so did Naomi Campbell. It became very popular very, very quickly, and yes, I did it too. Overall, there wasn't a lot of contouring or highlighting. There was some contour being done, but not in the way that it's being done today or the way that it was done in Y2K. I did pull out Charlotte Tilbury's Nudegasm, which again, I think is out again. And I will say something about the Nudegasm. This is actually a really good palette. It's my favorite from her that I've ever used. I used this shade today as my contour, and I used a little teeny bit of this blush just to give it like that little teeny bit of blush that we would have used back in the 90s. I did use a shade similar to this as like a contouring shade when I was in the 90s, but it really wasn't like the way we think of it now. It was because I am so incredibly pale that a lot of times when I would put the lipstick on, Twig and Purr and Chestnut and Spice, they were so brown and gray that, and I'd have like gray on my eyes as well. My skin would sometimes look, and my face was matte, you know. So I would take like even like a lipstick, like Twig or other shades, and use it as like a contour to make my face look a little less stark. But to be honest, it wasn't really a thing until Kim Kardashian started doing it with her makeup artist, Makeup by Mario, because he was the one who really made it popular. Now, the idea of contouring and highlighting and all of that has been around a very long time for a lot of entertainers, but it wasn't something that became part of the, you know, popular makeup idiom until much later. And so in the 90s, you go back and look, you'll see faces kind of look stark compared to now where everybody is like sculpted. Plus plastic surgery wasn't as much of a thing. So now everyone kind of has the same face, the same look. And back in the 90s and even the 2000s, you didn't really have that. Your face shape was your face shape. And when you started to see some makeup artists like Kevin Aucoin, who was a genius, do these contouring, highlighting, shape, face bending techniques, you're like, oh my goodness, you can look like somebody else. There really wasn't as much of that, you know? It was more like, oh, you have a round face, or oh, you have an angular face, or whatever it is. And yes, makeup artists would obviously take those things into account when they were doing your face, but everybody looked different. You might have the same makeup look, but the looks were, you know, everyone was a very different looking person. Now you have, everyone has the fox eye look, everyone has a certain level of contour, highlighting, blush, etc., fake eyelashes, plump lips. That just didn't exist back in the day. So it is very interesting to me to look back on those days and see the different looks. The makeup looks were definitely simpler back then, and they certainly had a similarity across the board. I think you're going to see some of that returning for, like I said, various reasons. One, people just thinking fondly of past times, and also because we've done a lot with the contouring and with like multiple eyeshadows and, you know, very glossy lips and then very dewy faces. And so there's always an ebb and flow to these things. So we might see more of the matte looks, maybe more of the cool tones. You know, Charlotte Tilbury's coming back with her smudgy kohl liners for the eyes and sculpting pencils for the lips. Again, you can see the comparisons here. So I just thought it'd be fun to go back and look at you know, some of the makeup styles. And for those of you who didn't live through the 90s wearing makeup, you know, these are things that will be new to you. So, you know, trying them out will be not a reflection on things that you'd already done, but a look that you hadn't necessarily tried before. And I think there's elements of it that I still really like. I still go for a pinky brown lip. I now go for one that's much more glossy, but back in the day, you know, this was what I liked. I still like a cool toned look on my eyes, but I'm definitely more likely to wear several different shades and kind of contour my eyelids and do a lot of different other things to make my face look more lifted. I generally don't wear matte foundation anymore or a full coverage foundation, but now I know how to do a full coverage foundation that looks less cakey than I used to. Because back in the day when I see the pictures, I'm like, wow, that was heavy. It was really heavy. So, you know, you can take elements of things that you saw before and update them a little bit to fit your new style, whatever that happens to be. And yeah, there's some things that I'd love to see back again. Now, I don't know about the blush thing because over the last couple of years, blush has been everywhere. There's so much blush coming out. And like I said, in the 90s, blush was not a thing. It really wasn't that popular. So it'll be interesting to see if blush dies down and we go back to just sort of the subtle pink makeup, you know, mocha kind of blush, or blush continues to be like the #1 thing. I mean, it hasn't seemed like it's stopping anytime soon. Last but not least, I do want to mention the choker I'm wearing because in the 90s, everyone wore a choker. I don't know why exactly, but we all had chokers. Like it was a thing. Like everyone had a choker. And most of the time, the choker, there was like a black cord. And so I had to find this one. It took me a while to find this. And I'm not sure where the black cord choker started, but like everyone had one. They were all different, of course, but we all had a black cord choker. I haven't seen that come back, but nothing would surprise me these days. So I'd love to hear about like your looks from the 90s, if you had them, what looks you would like to see brought back from the 90s, any particular elements that you'd like. And yeah, it's just a fun topic to go back and look at every once in a while, trying something a little bit different. So thanks so much for joining me today, guys. I really do appreciate it. And I hope to see you in another video really soon.